Okay, good day everyone. I'm Mr. Gosson, and today we're going to talk about a new topic in Biology 1, which is ATP and ADP cycle. So, before that, I would like to explain our objectives for today. So, first is students will relate to the role of ATP to energy transfer within the cell. Then the second objective is students will explain the importance of ATP as an energy carrying molecule. So if you're wondering, what is this ATP? So ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, as we have discussed from the previous topic. So adenosine triphosphate is composed of adenosine and three phosphate molecules, and it is referred as the molecular unit of currency of intracellular energy transfer. Addition to that, ATP is one of the most important compounds inside the cell because it is the energy transport molecule, and ATP is considered as a transporter of energy because when one of the phosphate group is broken up, it turns into another substance which is adenosine diphosphate. So meaning when we say adenosine triphosphate, it is composed of three phosphate molecule. But when one phosphate breaks up to the chain, it will become adenosine diphosphate, which is composed of two phosphate molecules. Also, in our discussion, these are the important concepts or keynotes that you need to remember. In ATP cycle, number one, you must remember that cyclic biochemical process that yields ATP from ADP. So that what is ATP cycle is all about. Number two, phosphorylation of ADP and hydrolysis of ATP. Phosphorylation, by the way, means adding of a phosphate. That is the meaning from the word phosphate, and relation means adding into it. And hydrolysis, again, hydro means water, lysis means breaking down. So hydrolysis of ATP means breaking down of ATP so that it can turn into ADP. So number 3 is ATP cycle releases energy stored in phosphoanhydride band. So later we're gonna talk about this phosphoanhydride band and what it is used and importance in the ATP and ADP cycle and to the whole cell itself. So this what is the ATP and ADP cycle. So it starts with an ADP. ADP stands for again adenosine diphosphate. So it composed of one adenosine and two phosphate. Then in this process, we turn ADP into ATP, which is 3 phosphate. So how does it happen? We turn ADP into ATP rather by the process of phosphorylation. So we do that by adding an inorganic phosphate into the ADP and also by using the energy that we gather from cellular respiration. So from that, we can combine the inorganic phosphate to the ADP and voila, it turns into ATP or adenosine triphosphate. Because we need energy in order to combine things. Then since it's called a cycle is a never-ending process, okay? So ATP is turned back into an ADP again. So adenosine triphosphate will become ADP. So how does it happen? It happens through the process of hydrolysis. So how do hydrolysis works? How can we turn ATP into ADP? We're gonna combine water in it. So the water will break down the adenosine triphosphate into adenosine and 2-phosphate. So it will become ADP. And on the process itself, one phosphate will be broken out, and because through that process of breaking down the bond, which we call the phosphorylandide bond. Okay, in hydrolysis, aside from one phosphate being removed from the ATP to turn it to an ADP, energy is also released into that process. So why? Because energy comes from the phosphoanhydride bond from the phosphate itself. So meaning in this process, I'm gonna summarize it. In ATP and ADP cycle, first we have an ADP. Then we're gonna combine a phosphate using an energy. Then it will turn into an ATP. Then ATP will be broken down by water. Once it's broken down by water, one phosphate will be removed, and from that process, from the phosphoanhydride bond, an energy will be released. So from that, ADP will turn into ATP, then ATP will become ADP again, so on and so forth. So that's why it's called a cycle or process, a never-ending cycle. So what we gain from this? Because it is kind of confusing, right? We added energy and we also release energy. So what is the purpose of ATP and ADP cycle? ATP is the currency. It gives energy and enables cellular process inside the cell. So in order to gain more energy, we use this ATP and ADP cycle. We take note that energy release is greater than the energy absorbed in the ATP ADP cycle. So through that never-ending process, the cell can harness and can gain energy that is required in order for it to function. So that is the importance and the purpose and function of ATP and ADP cycle. Okay, for our activity today, I want you to make an analogy on what is the similarity of this ATP ADP cycle into your own smartphone or cell phone. Since we are all familiar in using our cell phone today, please make an analogy or compare it to your cell phone, this ATP and ADP cycle. And I want you to pass it into my social media account, Messenger, or even in FB. Okay? And also, I will also add in your DLP. I want you to make an essay of the importance of this ATP and ADP cycle, which I already discussed if you really understand. And I also included there a uh, 5 item quiz. So I hope you learned today from this lesson, from the short lesson about ATP and ADP cycle. So I hope you understand. So if you have any more questions, just PM me. And as always, thank you for listening. So goodbye, class.